We are excited for our final session. Dr. Lallier is going to come up with me now, and we're going to kind of set it up for us. And then we get to hear from our colleagues. 4 of us in the room are going to be sharing their realities and their work, and that will be really helpful to us. After that, we'll be able to talk at our tables and then write our own action plan briefly, and then have a coaching conversation with someone else, where someone else can really help mediate our thinking before we close out this time together. So, Dr. Lallier.
So we're glad to see so many of you still here this afternoon. We've been talking a lot about I have been, between these presentations and the coaching cycle pathway, about that very intensive type of coaching where you're really looking for a lot individual coaching or individual and small group coaching together for a long duration of time, sustained frequent interactions. And I think that we have to remember that there are other kinds of professional learning that we're doing. And I think the opportunity to present updates on the essentials is really important, but it's not a coaching cycle kind of thing necessarily. It's more of Coaching Essential 7, where you're a literacy leader and you may be giving professional learning for specific purposes that is not long-term sustained frequent interactions, but is very important in order to get the latest research out to your colleagues and your teachers. So today we are going to start thinking about what it's going to look like as you go back into your districts, and how are you going to share some of these updates? Because remember, we as a group in May had an overview of those updates, just one right after the other. And you, because you're so intensely immersed in the essentials, it was easy for you to make some of those mental shifts like, oh yeah, it used to be this, now it's this and that. But that isn't necessarily the way that you are going to go through and inform the people with whom you work of the updates and why they're important. So we wanted to take some time this afternoon for you to think through how actually are you going to present some of these updates to the people with whom you work, and when you're going to do it, and why are you doing it, those kinds of things. So I think that that's what we're really wanting to have you leave with, in addition to all of your plans through the pathways that you have been participating in. And I've only heard wonderful things about all of the pathways, so I know that you're all leaving with some kind of an action plan of what you're doing. But we want you to leave with an action plan of how you're going to share the updates with your colleagues as well. And so I think Erin is going to, she's asked a few people to chat about this with you.
So we have 4 people who will be coming up. I see one standing now. All 4 of them can come on up. Crystal, Melissa, Carrie, and Stacy. Let's thank them in advance. Thank you so much. I know it's a lot to be like, yeah, I can do that tomorrow. Well, not everyone. One of them I talked to before this week. But so what's exciting about this moment here in this afternoon is that all 4 of them, okay, I didn't do it, Susan. I didn't do it. It wasn't even numbers. That's so fun. I love it. Lisa, you're not alone. I love it. And I love you, gentlemen. It's not anyone's problem or fault. But I think what happens is that we use Google Docs and then they get downloaded into PowerPoint and there's a little translation problem. So that's fun. But Susan, we laughed about it last night. We were like, we need them to be 1111, and it happened. I love it. I love it. So the first number 1 will be someone who is sharing how, when we think about all the different professional learning that we facilitate, you know, Coaching Essential 7 talks about our literacy leadership, right? So when we think about that, sometimes we're already working with groups over time, for multi-year initiatives. And we're going to get to hear from Crystal and how in Lapeer they are doing some work with groups of teachers across districts and how the updates will just naturally fold into that work. And then we'll think a little bit about how you here, this is really going to resonate because this is your experience this week, how you might be here with a colleague or two or more, and as we're in this space and learning, you're making a list of things that as a group of colleagues, you want to revisit together and you want to kind of calibrate around, because there's things that you do collectively around the essentials in your area, and you need to bring those updates into some of the things that you do. So you're going to be going back and saying, all right, what's our tasks, and then how do we weave that into what we already do, our already existent professional learning models. Any of these things don't matter the size of county or ISD or school you're in. So that's pretty cool, because as I talked with each of these people, this is all transferable to rural, urban, large areas, smaller areas, big teams, individuals, and that's really a gift. So thank you for preparing for these things. And then we'll be able to hear from Stacy, who's going to share a process that she and the principal worked in last spring, and really we're thinking about how to set a building-wide goal. I won't keep sharing so many details of what they'll be sharing, but we're excited about how the updated essentials just serve the exact work that a building has already committed to and are going to start to step into this school year. And then we're going to be reminded by Carrie. I had the honor of being at an intensive this spring for one day to support them, and Carrie happened to say something on that day, and it stuck with me. And I told her, I don't know why it's so profound to me, because it's not new, but the way that she said it reminded me how important our work with individual teachers are, and how much we're sharing curiosity, we're in a spirit of inquiry, and professional learning just kind of flows across the work we already do. So the updates will just be that flow, right? We'll just be in that language and in that work as we move forward with our colleagues. So here are the 4, and as each one comes up, and we're going to do that versus it'd be nice to be able to see them all, but we want to be mindful of those online and what you can see. As each one comes up and shares for a couple minutes, Susan and I are going to sit right over here, and we have the handheld mic. Susan, they'll stand here, and we'll be able to maybe ask them a question or two, and we'll just kind of move through these examples. And then you might be taking notes, because after this you'll be able to talk at your table and think about connections to any of these realities. So it's always helpful to hear the decisions and the metacognition of people who are in our kinds of roles. So let's thank them already. Crystal, come on up. Let's thank Crystal.
Hello, everyone. I'm Crystal White, the early literacy coach and consultant for Lapeer ISD. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about our literacy cohort that we have been doing. We're getting ready to launch our 3rd year of our literacy cohort supports and professional learning for Lapeer County teachers. But I want to give you a little bit of background knowledge for how this kind of got started. And I want you to think back, unfortunately, try not to shed a tear, but to COVID times. It was, I think, around spring of 2021. I think we were kind of right in the thick of COVID, and we knew that COVID, at least in our county, COVID had a large impact on students and their achievement. And we collected a lot of data, and we noticed that it specifically impacted class of 2032. And so around the time each year, around spring, as an ISD and as a literacy group, we always get together and we think of how do we want to support our teachers as far as like professional learning the next year and whatnot. And we've done, some kind of like essential year-long, trainings and kind of some periodic one-stop shops and things like that. But we're like, wow, this is the time that we need to do something more intentional. And it's so hard when you try to cover like a K-3 grade span. And it just seemed that by looking at data, that we really needed to overwhelmingly target the teachers and the students of class of 2032. So in the spring, we were looking ahead, and those students would be going into second grade. So a natural fit for us was to focus on all second grade teachers in our county, because data showed that COVID made an impact. And then simultaneously, as a coaching group at Lapeer ISD, we were doing the book study on Sharon Wolpole's How to Plan Differentiated Reading Instruction. And we're like, wow, it's so powerful. We know class of 2032, they have holes in their foundational skills. We have that awesome resource from Dr. Wolpole, and it naturally fits in with our essential practices. Number 5, it hits number 4 for sure, small group instruction, number 3, and then also it uses data to drive instruction. So we knew that's what we had to do. And so we planned out our whole, we wanted to do something different. We wanted to have kind of a sustained, intentional focus. We didn't want it to be a one-stop shop. We wanted to have like a series throughout the year. We wanted it to be job embedded, intentional. We wanted to help them with the assessments. We wanted to, model the different lessons for them. And so, of course, when we presented the resource to them, we showed them how it naturally fit within those essential practices. So we did that. We did a 3-hour whole group session with our teachers where we kind of gave them the why behind it and a little bit of the what, the resource that we were going to use. We gave them an overview of the essential. Then after school, we gave a series of after school sessions for the teachers, and our superintendent in our ISD is so supportive, and they were able to, allocate funding to give small hourly stipends for these second grade teachers to come. We had our first year we had over 60 participants. We were very close to having close to 100% of our second grade teachers attend at least a couple of sessions that we ran with our cohort study. So we did that. We have several after-school sessions. In between, our ISD coaches were kind of spread out. We work with different districts, so we were able to do kind of more small group coaching and also one-on-one in the classroom and modeling and things like that throughout the year. We had an awesome end of the year celebration with them. We compared pre and post data and whatnot. So that went over so well. And naturally, feedback from teachers and feedback from student data using that the informal decoding inventory piece showed that this actually did make an impact on student achievement. And so we decided this past school year that we needed to target another group of teachers, and we didn't want to just do one. And we knew that class of 2032, all their holes were not going to be filled in just by that 1 year of awesome intentional instruction. And so we decided to target third grade teachers, which the class of 2032, just this past year, they were in third grade. We also knew that first grade teachers should be giving that intentional foundational instruction as well. So we kind of did kind of 2 cohorts at once, a first grade and a third grade cohort. And then once again, lending itself right back to the essentials. We showed this how it's research supported, it aligns to the different essentials and whatnot. Same thing happened again. We had amazing results. Teachers, they loved having that collaborative and continuous support. They loved having a resource that, was like vetted by research, just to have something with minimal planning. And we just tried to alleviate all the barriers. When we, as a coaching team, when we were trying to plan for this cohort, we're like, okay, what would be a barrier for our teachers to not implement this? We're like standing at the copy machine, making copies. So guess what? We stood at the copy machine making copies for hours and hours of these so that teachers could walk away with, copies of lessons that they could go write with kids, and do right away. So we had a huge impact. We're so excited, not to talk too much, but Monday we're launching our kickoff session with kindergarten teachers. We really just want a horizontal and vertical alignment there. And throughout these last 3 days, we've been taking notes on, okay, when we are having our follow-up learning sessions with our teachers, how do we want to embed the updates to the essentials with our kindergarten teachers? And of course, we want to talk about, this is a way you can group your students is by using, the different Walpole instructional formats. Instead of just by levels. And we want to embed they should be reading some decodable books instead of just by level. And then also we want to talk about prompts. How do you prompt students, to read the words and decode the words and not just guess by pictures and things like that. So it's just like a real natural fit. If you are interested more in this type of cohort, we have been vetted by MDE as a promising practice to increase literacy achievement in Michigan, not necessarily because of the Walpole resource or just because of our coaching and things like that, but really it truly was the kind of the professional learning model. It wasn't a one-stop shop. It wasn't just, here's a book, do your own book study, read it on your own. It was just kind of like a year-long kickoff. We always targeted, we wanted to at least get to those 14 hours of professional learning. That's not even counting all of the additional one-on-one and small group coaching that we did outside of our large group sessions. But yes, we were so happy that MD had contacted us, and you can find us on our website if you want to learn more about it and see some more data and how we were able to provide some incentives for teacher participation. But this past year, we had over 80 participants. And one thing that I haven't added is, of course, we invited and encouraged classroom teachers to come, but also other staff. They support students with intentional literacy instruction as well. So we encouraged, if they have building literacy coaches or interventionists, we asked them to come too, and they received the stipends for attending. If they have Title I paras that are doing interventions, or if they had special education teachers, resource room teachers, EL specialists, they were also invited as well. So we are just over the moon and super excited to kind of repeat the same thing and get that vertical and horizontal alignment and share those essential changes, updates to our kindergarten teachers starting Monday.
Wow, Crystal, thank you. Yes. So you already kind of answered the question, but feel free to reiterate. So with the updates, and specifically even today with Essential 4 and 5 updates from the researchers, you're pretty much feeling like that's just going to be, you said natural fit, it's not going to be a drastic change to what you've planned?
Absolutely, it's a natural fit. We already, we already plan on talking about Elkonin boxes, but we will be able to really reiterate where you're at, and in the research and the essential practice where it falls. We'll make sure to provide copies of Elkonin boxes to them.
And even more than just about the updates, I think this whole idea of starting with one grade level, adding another one, they kept their focus tight. And so if you're planning your professional learning in a large district, or even, a medium-sized district, don't try to have Monday is kindergarten, Tuesday is first grade, Wednesday is second grade, Thursday is third grade. It's really too much to put on yourself for 1 year, so get started. I love the sequence of what you did.
After our first year, when we targeted second grade teachers, it was almost like, since they were in, all the different buildings throughout our county, we started to see first grade teachers thinking, what are they doing in second grade? That looks good. They were interested. And so some of them, we even were able to go to ahead of time and kind of pre-teach. And we would tell them, guess what? We think you're next year, so just wait. So they were ready to jump on board before we even invited them.
Awesome. Thank you again, Crystal.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lapeer, too, on your efforts. Melissa, please come on up. Thank you.
Oh my. Good afternoon. I'm Melissa Labadie, and I'm from Macomb ISD. And we've done some similar things, but I'm going to start with our actionable items. That is one of our terms that we use all the time, intention and actionable items. And I have a team here of 3 colleagues from the ISD, so there's 4 of us. divided, and our county is divided into quadrants because it's quite large, and we each serve a quadrant, but we come together for many of the things we do. So being here, listening in, having the opportunity to talk not only to my direct colleagues, but our educators on loan from our 13 different districts has been amazing. We've created a list of those actionable items and things we need to do. One of the best things, I think I'm going to tag something specifically, everything's great, but I am going to tag something specifically. My team has been struggling with independent reading. What it is, what it looks like. A few of us felt it was more of that sustained silent reading, and a few of us felt that it was more of that workshop with conferencing. So there was an aha moment actually last week. So listening and hearing from independent versus interdependent has filled us up so that we can go back now and kind of problem solve through those two pieces and come to that research-based piece we need to have in our day. So that was one of our ahas. Another thing that we do, it seems a little bit similar to Crystal. We have grade level literacy learning modules, and these are face-to-face. They actually started in 2016 with second grade. So we did a year of second grade, and then here came COVID. We ended up doing our first grade year online. Our kindergarten year has been ongoing. We're in year 2 of kindergarten. And then we launched last January the grades 3-5 modules. And the reason we did that is because what happens? What are those teachers getting in professional development? How are they changing their practice? And we didn't feel that a lot of change had happened. So we're running up that hill in K2, and we're changing, and we're meeting the needs of children. But then when we hit 3-5, there's not a lot of opportunities for our teachers to grow. So we definitely needed to address that. We're actually going to launch our 4th cohort, Cohort D, Monday. Oh my gosh, Monday. And when for the 3-4-5 practice, or 3-4-5, we really heavily focus on the reading and the writing, but every single thing in our K-5 modules, we ground ourselves in the essential instructional practices, the standards, What Works Clearinghouse, and beyond What Works Clearinghouse and the standards, if we don't find it in the essentials, the research, we go out and look for it. And it's not, the really nice thing is, it's nice because we're not the ones doing all the work, because it is a lot of work. We have educators from around the county, as well as our educator on loan literacy coaches and literacy coaches. So they come in, they're exemplar teachers, and they're doing the work with us side by side. Our K2 modules are 7 days. 3 days focused on language, 2 days on reading, and 2 days on writing. And they're constantly in change as we hear more and learn more through our collaborative sessions. Then we go back and we are changing and growing our teachers and ourselves and what good instruction looks like. How do we translate this to the classroom teacher? And they've been well attended. I think we're over 500 K2 teachers, leaders, administrators, special ed, EL teachers, and then I'm really excited about the 3-5 because the 3-5, we're going into cohort 4, and we're already at like 130 teachers. So it's been really a wonderful process, and it helps us to walk out of here and have that definite, deep impact on our students and moving forward. I didn't mention this to you, Erin, but I thought I should mention it too. So we've taken that model and we've moved it into high dosage tutoring. One of our colleagues has been leading that in the county, and we'll be going into year 3 of high dosage tutoring. I believe around 10 of our districts have participated in using a very specific model that came from the essentials, came from the research, and came from the standards on how to move our children along and accelerate their learning. And we've used the tools that have been presented here over the years to us, such as the DRI, to have that impact. And then 3 years ago, we were able to create, our boss tasked us with creating a summer program for kids going into 2nd through 5th grade. And we have been able to bring those modules and all that information and create that framework for our teachers. And we are data collecting, and we're seeing great success. But I want to state that every time we come together, we learn and grow so much more. And one of the best parts for our team in the county is that we hear multiple perspectives, and then we go and take it back and make it actionable to the work we're doing. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you so much. Actionable items. That's so confirming to all of us. And truly, size of ISD and county, it's so easy to transfer, isn't it? To imagine that kind of work where even if you are a single coach in one district, you might not have many teachers that can provide that common professional learning, but you do create your very predictable professional learning models too, right? The ways that you do that. So they called them modules for their face-to-face training, but the way that you facilitate that, the things that you engage in during that does become a routine for you when you're in a space for multiple years. So even that idea of, really kind of working hard, it's never perfected, but my mouth almost wanted to say perfecting a model for professional learning as new teachers come into even a small district. That does become part of the nature of our work as literacy leaders, but then we're always adjusting and tweaking and improving that. So thank you for that example and that honesty of that work. All right, we're ready. Stacy, come on up. Thank you.
I'm Stacy Shapansky, and I am a literacy coach through the Ottawa Area ISD. And I am going into my 2nd year as a coach. So I am just reflecting on the year that I've had, and walking into this building last year and into this room, I had no idea what I was doing. So I really talked to Erin about just bringing another perspective to coaching too, with our newer coaches and onboarding. So how Ottawa Area ISD works too, we have a team of 7 coaches throughout our county, and I get the privilege to be in one of the districts along with another coach. So last year, my principal was new, I was new, we had a lot of newness in the building, but also a lot of oldness with teachers. So being able to really create the coaching culture and what that really meant was a big part of working and partnering together. So in saying that, we eventually came up, our principal gave all of our staff the self-reflection and planning guide, and they each individually took that kind of assessment and handed it to our principal. And our principal did a spreadsheet, and it was clear that Essential 7, so vocabulary, was an area that most, if not all, of our staff wanted more learning and the area of growing in. So in saying that, we also, being freshly out of the classroom, I know, and during the time of COVID, I know I had that fresh outlook, and I could really relate to the teachers, and which helped build that credibility and just working together. So we know too that Essential 2 with read alouds goes hand in hand with building vocabulary and knowledge, and then also being here and learning more about the translanguaging. I cannot wait to take that little snippet back, because as I've grown and learned over the past year, we have to start small for our teachers. So I'm going to be completely vulnerable and honest right now. Those two ladies that spoke ahead of me, I might just have been over my head a little bit, and that's okay. So I'm going to start small, and this is just being able to take back and have our teachers really know that vulnerability for us too, and the updates in our essentials just will integrate right into the work that we're doing. Another thing that we are taking away is the connection with families and caregivers. That was a discussion at the end of our school year, and I actually created a summer resource guide for families, because we have to rethink our families and caregivers and situations at home. And so I had the thought of how can we access the most people, and most of our families and our community have a device called a phone. And so being able to connect in that way, and I approached it with a video and an actual document with everything linked for summer activities to keep that engagement at home going as well. So, the main essentials that we're really lifting this year at our school building are Essential 2, Essential 7, and Essential 10, which they were all spoken on the last couple days. And just, I'm very passionate too about, and I discussed this in our coaching cycles group, but we have to remember who our why is, and that's our kids and our students. So if we keep that, sometimes we lose sight of that. So if we keep that in focus and little steps along the way, it will make the biggest impact. Thank you.
Take a spin, right?
All right.
So it's so interesting that the last speaker was talking about how they're going to use these ideas to revise what they've already been done. Sometimes we're a little bit resistant. We spent 2 years on this, and now we have to revise it again. But that's what keeps things going, is that you revise in light of new ideas. And here, it's not really so much revising. And the teachers aren't having to learn anything new, because they're learning about 2 and 7 of the new updated standards as you go. But you have to revise your thinking a little bit and think about that. And it was just so nice to hear you clearly explain, like, we're doing 2 and 7, and translanguaging just fits right in there. So, you know exactly what you're going to add or what you're going to talk about as you begin your work. And I think the idea of starting small, especially in a context where teachers have selected what they want to know more about, and that they're going to be really interested in participating in this new learning. I think those adult learning principles you have to remember. If it's relevant to my kids, relevant to me solving a problem I have, and vocabulary building in many, many, many schools is a major, major issue that we have yet to really attack in a really good way. So I'm going to be very interested to see how that goes.
Thanks.
It'll
I'll
go
let
well.
you know next year.
I just want to hear how it goes well.
Yes. Very good. You're welcome. Thank you.
So much, Stacey. The real work from literally being in this room last year to being in this room this year, and to have, like, a lot of us are very, very in awe that could happen in a year, that a building could select foci around the essentials in a year. Like, those are some conditions for incredible support to teachers and student growth. Congratulations. And Carrie, come on up, please.
Definitely moving this back down. My name is Carrie Trineri. I am also a literacy coach at Ottawa Area ISD. This is my 6th year in that role. I think I'll just start by saying we all know that relationships are at the heart of what we do, whether our interactions are with other coaches or with other literacy leaders or administrators, and especially our relationships with teachers. And I think that there's a symbiotic relationship between having those strong, trusting relationships and being able to take a stance as a co-learner. That's what I'm going to talk about a little bit, and how I weave that stance, almost a part of my identity as who I am as a coach, is taking a stance of being a co-learner. And so developing the conditions where teachers feel like you're learning alongside them, you're learning together in order to support the work that you're doing. Taking a co-learning stance can really help to create an authentic sense of partnership. Sometimes there can be these sort of perceived hierarchies that I know we're all familiar with, times when we're in the classroom with administrators and other people, and really being able to create that authentic sense of partnership with the teachers that we're working with so that it is a true side-by-side collaborative experience, all with the goal of supporting students in the classroom. So it also can help keep everyone curious about practices and also values and beliefs that surround those practices. Often when we come into an individual coaching cycle, which is what I'm mainly talking about here, I think often we think of professional learning as happening in larger group settings like this, or even smaller group grade level teams and things like that. But so much professional learning has opportunity in individual coaching cycles that can be really beneficial to keep people curious about their own values, beliefs around practices that are happening, and also to help them learn about new practices that are supported in research. Because we all have wonderful opportunities like this, but we know that many of the teachers in our districts don't have things like that, or at least not as often as we wish they did or as they wish that they did. So we can really ground the rest of the coaching cycle work in research by bringing in co-learning from the very beginning. In fact, that's often one of the first things that I do in a coaching cycle after an initial conferencing conversation with the teacher, is to bring back a snippet of an article, a small video clip, even just one essential itself related to the work that we're doing, and doing a small protocol, like sitting down, reading it together, and just saying, so what are you thinking? How might this relate to the work that you're thinking we might do together? And that can often really drive the course that a coaching cycle takes, and partners really well with student data, because we can look and see, oh, I thought that I really needed or wanted to work around this to support my students, but actually after reading and talking about this together, I think that we might want to go in a different, I might want to go in a different direction. I've had teachers say that to me before. So as far as updates to the essentials, weaving into that practice that I'm already doing in my individual coaching, it's really an opportunity to individualize learning for teachers and where they're at, and get a feel for what ways that I can further support their knowledge so that they can support students, and really to inform the goal of the coaching cycle. I know Dr. Laleh mentioned earlier in the week about how important that clear goal is at the beginning of a cycle, and we don't know what we don't know. So if we come to the beginning of a coaching cycle and grounding it in learning together, then that can be a good place to really determine, what do we know, what do we want to know more about, and how does that relate to what we want to work on together. So the essentials are great bite-sized pieces of learning that can really invite teachers to share in and drive their own learning experiences to benefit students, and it can help us be responsive to what teachers and students need, because we can always bring in other resources and things we might want to learn around together as we are working together in the moment.
So I'm just thinking we might want to revise our coaching cycle diagram to include that piece in either goal setting, or between goal setting and co-planning, about how can we really include that professional learning as part of that coaching cycle and reminding ourselves as coaches that we need to really do that. So we're always thinking, I haven't revised that cycle for a while, maybe we need to think about doing that. But what a clear picture of how you work with teachers, I think, Carrie, right? Yeah. Of how you work with teachers as a co-learner. And many times, you will find as a coach that they want to work on something that you really, it's not your area of expertise, but you do need to go back and learn. And so showing them that you're learning at the same time rather than you going back and getting all the information and then coming and giving it to them, it's a very different way of looking at what professional learning, co-learning could look like. So I thank you for sharing that.
One more, please, deep gratitude-filled applause for these 4 colleagues to share today. Thank you so much. Thank you. You may. Thank you, thank you. They're just examples of who we are when we're together. We are learning from each other just as much as from anyone holding a microphone. So, and yet they still were willing to hold a microphone for us today. So thank you, thank you, thank you for hopefully not losing any sleep about that, but for really enriching us. All right, so you have a little time to talk at your table. I'm going to invite a process that you might choose to use. This week you might have been just talking informally, with whomever's next to you or however the conversation flowed. But because we are going to move into some individual work and then have a coaching conversation, I invite you to do a process where each person around your table says something. And the invitation is which of these examples resonated with you and your next steps with the updates. So feel free, if you like that process, to go ahead and let everyone around your table share a response to that. And then we know that you'll be doing deeper work when you head back home and really going into some of the connections and alignment work that you might be thinking about as well. But for now, I'm inviting that kind of share around as everyone's saying something and then using the remainder of the time to open up that conversation. We'll spend about 3 or 4 minutes. Thank you.
Okay, so you should have at your table 2 pieces of paper. Evidence of more trees that we have disposed of.
Raise your hand if you need the 2 handouts. They've been at the table, and I think they were delivered to your tables, but you need the handout, and for those of you online as well, you'll need the document online. It's a template so that you're forced to make a copy, and it's called My Action Plan, so you'll need that now, and then the PDF linked called Sharing Protocol for Your Action Plan. So does anyone in the room need any of those? Okay.
So we're just going to look at My Action Plan right now. You've had some time to talk with your neighbors, and you already probably stated what you're going to do, or at least you have some ideas. And this is not in blood. You don't have to stamp it and say, I'm absolutely going to do it this way, but this is what I'm thinking right now. You notice that you have an opportunity to talk about 2 instructional practices, but you may choose to really focus on 1 if you want to. In the amount, we're going to give you about 7 minutes or 5 to 7 minutes to fill this out. So which instructional practice is most salient to you at the moment that you're going to work on? But of course, we know from one of the speakers that they're going to do 2 and 7. And incidentally, maybe 9 for assessment, but 2 and 7. Why did you select this practice? Some of the things we've talked about. Well, we had a focus on this practice in 2022-23, and I just want to make sure that this group hears some of the updates related to this practice. We're going to continue focusing on it this year, and so I'm going to embed those practices in the work that we do. We're going to start on a new practice. So from the get-go, we have all those updates already into the new essentials booklets. So I don't have to say, well, we used to have this and now we have this. If it's a brand new practice you haven't talked about, you can just start from there and say, let's look at Essential 2. You don't have to say this is newly added. And maybe you're going to discuss the updates in light of a curricular resource being used. That whole curricular resource group is probably thinking about, okay, how does this resource fit in with some of the updates? And maybe it's favorable, and you can say, wow, they were ahead of us. Or you can, if there are some areas of disagreement, you can talk about how you're going to deal with those. Maybe you just want to discuss the updates with the leadership team because that's a group of people who is always interested in new research, and you want to make sure that they know some of the new ideas. Or you might be discussing it, as somebody said, I think Harry at the end was talking about just discussing it with the teachers with whom they're coaching. And there could be some other reason why you pick that practice. Then think about with whom you're going to be working if you know, is it second grade teachers? Is it a second grade teacher? Is it a team of second graders? Is it a whole, is it the whole school or some of you across districts? And then outline how and when you plan to incorporate that into your coaching and what possible concerns or questions do you have as you anticipate this. And when you're going to kind of find the time to do all this. So remember, start small and think about what's most important to the people with whom you're working. So as I said, you can pick one practice and try to outline this in the next 5-6 minutes. Or if you're doing two practices in tandem, you might want to take a stab at both sides of the page. So we're going to give you about 5 minutes. Okay, 5, 7, 5 to 7 minutes. We'll probably check in with you at 5 and see if you need more. This is really a quiet time, though. It's not really a time to share with your partners unless you're working as a team, I guess, and you want to check in and make sure that you're kind of on the same path. But, do it quietly so those who are doing it individually can really have some time to think.
Okay. So we're now going to get ready for a coaching conversation with one other person. Michelle's already getting people who are here on Zoom together so that they'll be able to be with someone. And we're going to be with someone we don't know because we're all coaches and we can all support each other. So this is how it's going to go. If you could advance the slide. Oh, never mind. I've got it here. There we go. So we have 4 quadrants in this room. I know some of our corners aren't literally available, but the quadrants would be. So if we bisected this room and we had the front left, your left. So this is the front left, the front right, the back left, and the back right. What we're going to really do is just kind of move in that direction. It's okay if you don't get all the way to the corners, but if you really just were to cut this room in 2 lines with four quarters, that's what we're going to do. So what we were hoping to do is kind of help you find people who are thinking similarly to you, because they'll be able to coach you best if they kind of understand your situation. And what we are going to do is have this front left section, and this is not true for those online, but if you kind of were thinking about your action plan around your work with individuals or small groups of teachers, if Carrie was really speaking to your reality, then you'll come up here to the front left. And I know that we do all this work as coaches. We do all of the professional learning and the coaching and the small group and the staff meetings, but really what your action plan was focused around is where we're going to kind of separate out. And maybe you are like Stacy and you're thinking about that school that you support or one of the schools you support and a school-wide focus and how that's going to support that building, that microcosm, that culture in that building. So if your work is anything around a school and their collective focus, then you'll come up here. Maybe you chose today to be thinking about some of that county-wide or like across a district-wide work across multiple buildings like Melissa or Crystal shared with us today. You'll go to the back left. And really, we know that your work is so multifaceted that maybe the action plan you created doesn't really fit in any of those, and you'll find your people in the back right quadrant. When we move, once you get going that way, you'll partner up with someone. And when you partner up with someone, you'll stand, let's stand, unless there's anyone who would prefer to sit, but let's stand with your partner in a space in the room. So once you find your partner, you don't have to stay in that quadrant. And let's take a look at the protocol. So you have it in front of you. Those of you online have it too, or if you don't yet, you'll definitely want to open that up in another tab because that will guide your timing. And we really want to make sure everybody gets a little coaching conversation from someone else. So we'll really adhere to that timing. So we're on step 3. You'll partner up with someone else in your group. And we really encourage you to choose that partner you don't know yet. That will enable you to hear from a new perspective. Step 4, you'll determine who will share first. And go ahead and name yourselves Partner A and Partner B. Partner A will share first. So take a look at the table. It talks about 2 different choices so that this is a succinct coaching conversation. Many of us have been trained in cognitive coaching and planning conversations or problem-solving conversations where we mediate each other's thinking, and they're long, but we have to kind of be truncated today and focused on this. So you have 2 different choices. Partner A, tell your coach what you need from them. Take a look at the choices now. Maybe when you're sharing, you say, I need another brain to help me, and take a look at that first row. Refine and clarify what I'm thinking. So I'm going to, under what to share, I'm going to share an overview of my plan and my desired outcome. And could you, as you listen to me, look at the questions in that final column. Could you be thinking of questions you have that would help me refine? Or thinking of suggestions that you would have to help me clarify? We're kind of in consulting mode a little bit here in this conversation, but really, please, Partner A, tell Partner B what you need from them. Or maybe you're in a problem-solving mode because you need some resources around this. You need some support in your thinking. So you would say, I'm going to need you to help me think about this as far as possible solutions because I'm either a little stuck or I'm still in that stage of trying to figure out where I would start. So you would still share the basics of what you've already drafted, of your plan, and you would kind of name, so here's my problem. Here's my problem of practice. Here's my confusion or the thing I'm wrestling with right now. And then you would share that, and the coach would then know that they're going to focus their coaching of you, still paraphrasing, of course, still clarifying, but then to maybe help that person brainstorm. And that's the zone that you can be in for that conversation. So don't kind of go past the idea of before you start sharing your plan or your idea, asking your coaching colleague what you need from them. So then we just kind of have some timing there down at the bottom for steps B, C, and D. So we're going to ask the first person to share for about 3 minutes. So you will need to, and it's not up in the materials list up above where it asks you to bring your action plan you just wrote, this protocol, and something to write with, like maybe your notebook and a pencil. You also might want to bring something to take, like kind of set a timer, because we don't want someone to miss the chance to share and get some coaching. So 3-minute share, your partner is actively listening, and then 3 to 5 minutes for that coach to provide you what you asked. And of course, that's a conversation, but that's the heart of it, isn't it? That's the real work. And then you will get to pause Partner A and jot those ideas before you automatically go into coaching mode, because you want to kind of get those golden nuggets. Then you'll switch roles, and step 5 just names that you will be able to go through that for the other person. So I think really the thing that's different about maybe this coaching conversation protocol than other things is that ability to just name exactly what you need from someone and for them to show up for you. And so hopefully this time is a gift. All right, we are going to stand and move to those areas and find a partner and go ahead and engage.
It's good to hear so much conversation still going on toward the end of the conference. So instead of sharing your plans, because you've shared them, kind of your thoughts at the table already, and then you shared your plans with another person, what I'd like to hear about is, from a coaching conversation spot, did you like having this kind of really focused way of holding a conversation with somebody by saying, this is what I would like you to talk about during this conversation, or this is a problem I'm having. Could a couple of people talk about if they like that or if they felt constrained by that? So Erin is walking around, and somebody's going to talk about the coaching conversation itself, how it felt working from a fairly constrained point of view that you were supposed to work on. Couple of ideas?
I think that keeping it tight that way is nice because our conversations are usually so short in the amount of time we have that if you can narrow that focus down a lot and keep it tight, you can accomplish a lot more because you don't have the opportunity to ramble or get sidetracked as much.
Find out how the kids are doing, right? So think about how you might use something like this when you're doing professional learning with teachers, and what kind of questions might be helpful to have them stay on track. Is there anybody else that found it too constraining, or you liked it, or did you get your needs met this way?
I just think it's really always nice to just meet some new faces. You know, we get comfortable with our people. And so my mantra is we grow in the uncomfortable. And I don't know where she is, but Brittany, yeah, right over there. And it was just nice. I feel a lot better going into my conversation tomorrow with my principal around it. And not saying like my team wouldn't have done that, but to get other perspectives and viewpoints and questions asked, and just having a conversation.
And so I think sometimes when you're thinking about those courageous conversations that you're going to have with a teacher about something that you know that this next coaching conversation is going to be a little difficult, you might want to kind of jot down that conversation and really practice it with a coaching colleague before you go in. Practice some of the ideas that you might bring up, or some of the questions that you think the teacher might bring up, and how are you going to respond to those? How can you get the teacher to respond to some issues that were in the look-fors, but you didn't see them, or you saw them in a different way? So sometimes just reviewing, rehearsing a little bit before you go into a coaching conversation is also very helpful. Brings your thinking to point and makes you really kind of practice that language that you want to use. Erin, do you have any final statements? What we'd like you to do is, we know that you have this action plan. We're probably going to be checking back with you in October, right? About how your action plan is going and how you're embedding those new ideas, the updates from the essentials into your work. And any further questions that you might have of the researchers that they can clarify for you. So you might want to start taking some notes about things you'd like the researchers to address in October as well.
Yes, absolutely. Let's thank Dr. Lallier one last time. Invite Lisa to come on up for our final piece. And I just want to name that when we're talking about the essential updates, you got a new booklet today. And there might have been questions about so what about these booklets and getting those printed for people. There's one error we need to change, one word that's repeated in the pre-K essentials. So we'll change that and we'll update that with International Minute Press. They are the printers of the essential booklets. If anyone ever, a couple years ago, our superintendents in Michigan, all the ISD superintendents committed to this work, and one of their commitments was to get the essentials in the hands of all the teachers. So you've already had big orders of these booklets in the past, and then your organizations maybe ordered more of them. You can print them at your own organization, but if you just ever went through International Minute Press to do that, you know that they're doing that. And the question was in the chat for Zoom, what about booklets? How is that going to go? So we will update that one error in the booklets that you have, and then change that with International Minute Press. And we also are going to be reaching out to all of the coaching coordinators to say, how many booklets do you need for the coaches on your team, so you can get a fresh one, and that everybody at every ISD who's in this coaching network has them. And then we'll have the ordering information on the website too. So that's coming to you as you continue to work toward this work. So big gratitude for you and all that you've done for each other this week. Lisa?
Okay. So thinking about how we want to show up. Also, thank you for being here. We're almost there. I know I'm what's standing between you and the exit, so. I'm going to read this to you. Coming to self means knowing our identities and becoming unapologetic about who we are, having humble entitlement about our beauty, genius, and justice orientations. Coming to self means not just knowing ourselves today, but also knowing who we are and destined to be, knowing our purpose on the earth. It means being conscious of the world around us and knowing what drives our thinking, decision-making, and actions. It means not just understanding our own struggles and adversity, but recognizing the struggles and adversity of others and empathizing. And this comes from Unearthing Joy, the words of Dr. Gholdy Muhammad. Beautiful words that remind us that our identities are constantly shaping and reshaping. And one of the true beauties that lies within us is knowing our identity, knowing who we are unapologetically, but also most empathetically. So, as you think and you leave this room today after 3 beautiful days together, ask yourself, what legacy or imprint do I desire to leave as a coach, as an educator? And how am I working toward that? So we all have an opportunity to show up and to be that person. And what does that look like? What does that look like for each one of us? Thank you, thank you, thank you so much for your time this week. We have 0 words to describe the imprint that you have left on us as planners. And I know that you have each played an important role in others. I've heard it. I've heard it this whole entire week. So please don't forget to fill out the evaluation. Again, we pore over those words, but mostly, please drive safely home, and we'll be thinking about you.
I think there's a final slide that could be put up unless it was downloaded late. There it is. Thank you. You can just type that bit.ly into your phone, or if your computer's on. Those of you online, it's right in our agenda. Those of you who really have to scoot, it's in our agenda. Could you please complete that tonight? But it's just type in bit.ly/2023 advanced, no uppercase letters. It's really quick, and we really hope that we get a high percentage of people filling out that form. Remember, the sketch form is linked in our agenda as well, so you can fill that out within the next couple days. And now we're all set. Thank you so much.